Well, Happy New Year. 2020 has finally come to a close. And yes, Quachi and I are all right. Really? You're saying nothing? You have nothing to say? Oh, you're still hungover. Yeah, despite 2020 affecting a lot of plans we had for this year, we still found some way to celebrate. And yeah, 2020's been kind of a fucking horrible year. A lot of people have died due to the pandemic, and a lot of other people have been infected and are still infected with the coronavirus. And then a lot of people have lost their loved ones over this, and my hearts go out to you. And the pandemic has also affected all the smaller things in our lives. Obviously, not as important as your actual health and safety, but a lot of the things we do sometimes take for granted were also greatly affected as well. That, of course, just being going out to places, sitting down in a restaurant, and of course, watching a movie in a movie theater. A lot of movies people wanted to see this year have been delayed to 2021 or beyond. This includes films such as Dune, Godzilla vs. Kong, and many other films. But what about the films that did release this year? The ones that make us go, yeah, I couldn't see this film, but this film was actually pretty good. And so this is today's video, the top 10 favorite movies of 2020. Now these are the movies that I got to watch. So if a movie you think I should have talked about doesn't show up, either I didn't watch it, or I just didn't think it was one of my favorites. Like I said, this is a subjective list for the most part. These are my personal top picks. So with that being said, let's get started. The number 10 film, Yes God Yes. Taking place in the early 2000s, shortly after the 9/11 attacks, I think. A 16-year-old Catholic girl has a sexual awakening that starts when she's on online chat forum, as most sexual awakenings are caused by. And she explores that sexual awakening further in a retreat with her fellow Catholic classmates. Now, sometimes a movie doesn't necessarily have to have amazing performances, amazing writing, or a groundbreaking story to make it into someone's top 10 list. It just has to be hilarious. That's not to say that the rest of the film is bad. There are good performances, the writing's actually very good, but it is so hilarious to see some of the things that happen in this movie and the way they play out. It's very simple, direct to the point, but you still remember it. It's a very short film, not even 80 minutes long, but it's a hilarious yet very honest film about sexuality in the 2000s era. Definitely well worth the watch. At number 9, Borat's subsequent movie film, or known as Borat 2. Yeah, for the most part, this film was filmed almost entirely in secret. Borat is sent to the US&A to deliver a present to President Donald Trump in order to have good standing between Kazakhstan and the United States. Of course, the original mission is now what ends up going on, and also there's his daughter that suddenly enters the picture, and it's sort of like a road trip movie with him and her, a father-daughter bonding experience. And that's really the heart and highlight of this movie. It's that father and daughter dynamic, that bonding emotional core of the movie, which is actually a good highlight. Now, of course, you might be thinking, how can you make a Borat movie today when so many people are familiar with the character? And that actually does play a part in this movie. It seems like, for the most part, the jokes and pranks played in this film, they're still funny. But you can tell, for the most part, the real people are either know this that Borat is actually just filming something, they just go along with it, or they think, oh, it's another prank or prank show or something like that, and they just, again, go along with it. But there are still a few genuine surprises in this film, including a genuine plot twist at the end of the movie I did not see coming. Won't spoil it. Check it out. But yeah, this is actually a film that has a surprising emotional core that really works. At number 8, Hashtag Alive, a South Korean zombie film that was released internationally through Netflix, focuses on a young YouTube gamer that is stuck in his home alone following the breakout of a zombie apocalypse. Now, the production of this film wrapped up, I want to say, around December 2019, but the way that the emotions that this main character goes through throughout the various stages of the zombie apocalypse is actually very similar to how a lot of people probably felt during the shutdowns that was caused by the real world pandemic. I mean, at first, the appeal of staying at home and just chilling out does seem to have its benefits. But the isolation gets to you, start to feel lonely, run low on supplies. Okay, maybe not so much in the real world, with the exception of toilet paper, but you know what I mean. It's a film that does have a surprising relevance to a real world situation. Obviously, that wasn't planned, but it's still something that kind of connected with me. And at number 7, The King of Staten Island. Wait, there is a movie starring Pete Davidson, and he doesn't break character? Oh, I gotta check this out. The reason why this isn't really a movie that Pete Davidson breaks character is because the character itself is pretty much Pete Davidson. Scott, a young 20-something-year-old living in Staten Island with his mother, is sort of lost in life in a certain sense. His father, a firefighter who died when he was young on the job, is suddenly being replaced, at least in Pete Davidson's eyes, let's just call him Pete Davidson, when his mother starts dating someone else, another firefighter played by Bill Burr. This is sort of a coming of age story that's directed by Judd Apatow, but it's for people in their 20s that still quite haven't figured out what their life should be yet. And as a young 20-something-year-old myself, who probably has a little bit of a better grasp on their life, but not too much, I understand a lot of the feelings that Pete Davidson is going through in this film. And this is very much a passion project for Pete Davidson, obviously, because Pete Davidson does live in Staten Island. I think he still lives with his mother. And his father was a firefighter that died in 9/11. Obviously, this movie doesn't exactly copy and paste everything, but it's very similar to Pete Davidson's real life, and obviously a story he wanted to tell. So yeah, it's a slightly more unique coming of age story that I think will connect to a large group of people. At number 6, Possessor. Or depending on how you search it up on Google, the official title is Possessor Uncut. The movie follows an assassin who transfers her mind and consciousness into another person's body in order to carry out hits. Except this one job, the person whose body she's invading starts to fight back and resist a bit, and the whole mission spirals out of control. Now, the reason why the official title might come up as Possessor Uncut is because at the very beginning of this film is a message that basically says this movie has not been edited in any way. And boy, oh boy, is that ever true. The movie is directed by Brandon Cronenberg, and yes, he is the son of David Cronenberg, the director behind movies such as The Fly and The Dead Zone. I always find it a little unfair that whenever a famous director's child goes into filmmaking as well, they kind of compare it to their parent who has made several famous films and people are expecting a similar thing from them. I'm like, just let them do their own thing, find their own path. But with the amount of body horror, psychological terror, the great writing, and the direction the story goes, Brandon Cronenberg does seem to be a perfect inheritor of his father's legacy. And I can't wait to see what other films this guy has done and will do in the future. At number 5, Bad Education. This is based on a real life story about a bunch of money that was embezzled out of a school in the Northeast. And it focuses around a superintendent that's played by Hugh Jackman. Released through HBO, this movie, it is a very great movie, mainly because of Hugh Jackman's performance. The writing and acting from everyone else is very real, very grounded. But Hugh Jackman brings a charisma to the role that really sucks you in, almost gets you to sympathize with him a bit. But then you have to remember, oh yeah, this character is actually kind of a sociopath. Not like an extreme one like Wilson Fisk from Daredevil, but enough of a sociopath where, at the end of the day, you know he's just manipulating people in order to keep up a certain lifestyle, so to speak. But that charisma brings you in even more, makes you kind of forget about that bit, and gets you sucked into the story. And it's a very well done film. That's all I really have to say about that. At number 4, hold on a sec. Hold on. Do I have this DVD? Number 4 is Color Out of Space. And, oh yeah, do have the DVD. As you can tell, Nicolas Cage, not the Beast. Yeah, when I saw Nicolas Cage was in this movie, I had to check it out. But you can tell just based on the box cover art that it's a film that has a lot of great visuals in it, and it plays a lot with color. And that's because this is based on a short story written by H.P. Lovecraft, and of course it's about cosmic horror. In this story, a meteor crash lands on a small farm, and it does a bunch of things around to the environment, affects the psychology of all the family members that are living on that farm. It does a great look at cosmic and psychological terror, and does some great practical effects, as well as has stunning visuals as well. And of course, Nicolas Cage brings the cage madness. So, definitely one you should check out. At number 3, Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. Oh, fuck that. It's just Birds of Prey. Long ass title, but great movie. I actually did get an advanced screening for this movie. And by advance, I mean I watched it a couple of days before its official release. But still, it's an advanced screening. Harley Quinn, following her breakout out of Blackgate, I think that's what it's called, from Suicide Squad film, is back in Gotham, has to help out a young girl named Cassie that's being hunted by a local mafia criminal, Black Mask. Violence and hilarity ensues. Of course, Margot Robbie is great as Harley Quinn. Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Huntress is also great. Black Canary is a very badass character. Of course, a lot of people will have gripes because in the comics, the Birds of Prey team was founded by Barbara Gordon, aka Batgirl, and Harley Quinn was never really a member of the team. And yeah, that does kind of get to me a little bit, but it is still a very fun and cool looking movie with some great action, great performances, some cool visuals, and it's just funny as well. So one definitely to check out. Number 2, The Five Bloods. The latest Spike Lee movie released on Netflix about a group of black Vietnam vets going back to Vietnam to find treasure they buried many years ago. It is a movie that explores the psychology of what happened to these people following the Vietnam War, how their lives played out. And it's a great character piece. I'm not sure if I'm using that term correctly, but it is a movie that's focused mainly on the characters, and of course Spike Lee does a great job with them. And I think one of the highlights of the film that I think is uncomfortably noticeable now is Chadwick Boseman's performance as a Vietnam vet they served under, but who died during the war. During the war, or was it shortly after? Either way, he's dead during the main events of the film. And having Chadwick Boseman play in this as one of his final performances kind of elevates the movie slightly a bit more based on like how he's used. It's a long movie to be sure, but definitely one you should sit down and watch to fully understand. And my number one favorite movie of 2020, The Invisible Man. The Invisible Man follows Elizabeth Moss's character, who, after escaping an abusive relationship with a scientist named Adrian Griffin, finds out shortly afterwards that he killed himself, left her a large amount of money on the condition that she is not declared mentally unstable. A bunch of strange occurrences start happening to her, gets her paranoid, thinking maybe he's found the way to haunt her from beyond the grave. And it's a look at psychological terror from both as a survivor of an abusive relationship as well as just being hunted by an unseen predator. Now, this is a remake of a classic 1930s Universal monster film, which is also an adaptation of the book written by H.G. Wells. Big fan of the book, bigger fan of the original classic Universal Monsters film. It's my favorite of those films, as well as my favorite horror movie of all time, and just overall one of my favorite movies ever. And I was kind of concerned that Blumhouse was remaking the film, because a couple months prior, they did their Black Christmas remake, which was awful. And in that same month as The Invisible Man, they released their Fantasy Island horror take, which, better, was still greatly underwhelming. But this movie really understands the psychological terror, as well as has great visual effects to go along with it. The character that Elizabeth Moss plays is amazing. The writing modernizes it enough where it is relevant, but still keeps it timeless. It makes it a worthy successor to the original film as well as the original story. If you haven't checked this out, it is probably the one movie you really should check out because it is terrifying and amazing to watch. So, from Quachi and I to you guys, happy 2021. Let's hope it's a better year than 2020. Knock on wood. And check out some of these movies. They're really great. And while we couldn't see all the movies we wanted to see in 2020, the films that I've seen and laid out here are all great watches. So, am I fully retired for this channel? I guess maybe not, but we'll see what the future holds. One day at a time, people. So, see you later.